Hi, we're here today with Jeannie Krumdak, who is the chair of the Department of Interior Architecture at the Samford School of the Arts. And we are going to learn about their recent accreditation process that they went through, where they invited CETA to come and learn more about their program and get their reaccreditation. So if you could tell us a little bit about CETA and what CETA does and how that's important to our program, and also to talk a little bit about the accreditation process and how often you have to do this and why it's important.
Sure. CETA stands for the Council for Interior Design Accreditation, and they are an independent accrediting body that accredits programs in institutes of higher learning across the U.S. and Canada. An accreditation visit occurs every 6 years. Our first accreditation was in the late 1990s, so I've been through a few of these now. The reason CETA is important to our program and to other programs across the country is that interior design impacts a lot more than most people understand. The first thing that comes to mind is decoration, and while we do that, that's about 10% of what we do. Professional designers impact the health, safety, and welfare of the public. We design spaces in hospitals, airports, schools, hospitality, and any space within the shell of a building an interior designer touches. So because of that, it's really important that our students graduate with knowledge of how they impact those who use the space and are able to communicate their ideas technically to contractors, as well as make sure that the users are protected as far as their health, safety, and welfare.
Well, so how does the process go from here? CETA has recently visited Samford, and so where do we go from here after they visited the school?
Okay. CETA has approximately 16 standards that the program is required to meet. These standards are then broken down into substandards, so it ends up approximately 100 points that they are looking for whenever they come look at the exhibit and the program. The majority of these have to do with student work. They are simply looking for evidence in the student work that would indicate that our program meets these content standards. These standards are developed from a survey that they do of the profession approximately every 5 years to ensure that what they are looking for is up to date with what entry-level designers are expected to know. So this keeps our students current, our program current, and they update the standards, like I said, approximately every 5 years. So next time when they come, they'll be different again. So it begins with a visit and actually a report that I write, or the program writes, called a program analysis report. And they take this and then they come and spend 4 days scrutinizing every little detail of the program, and that's what this exhibit is for.
So as a student enters into their first year at the Interior Architecture program at Samford, tell us a little bit about how that goes and what they're learning and how they begin their process.
Okay. As part of the School of the Arts, all of our students are required to secure a fine art minor. This enables them to build their basic foundation understanding of the elements and principles of design. They take 4 courses in structure, 1 and 2, which is art theory, and then they take a basic drawing class and a basic painting class. These are some examples of, as you move through this exhibit, you begin with just some of the basic drawing types that the students learn to do. They do gesture studies, value, they learn perspective. These are a little more comprehensive. They study composition and value. They move from black and white into color, where they begin to study color theory in their structure class and do this quite creatively, I think. We have a wonderful relationship with the art faculty and work hand in hand to enable them to encourage our students and how they will eventually apply this to their major. You can see one particular project here. They even began to build chairs based on a design that was done by an Italian designer, and then they began to embellish it and actually build models and then an actual full-scale model of their chairs in the shop at the Art Lofts. You'll see that they deal in 3-dimensional design. as we begin to lead into preparation for their ability to design three-dimensional spaces. So they study relief, they study how to carve into spaces, they use different building materials. All right, in their second semester of their first year, the students work more in three dimension. They do studies that involve relief and carving, and I mentioned earlier the chair design, taking Enzo Mari's chair and begin to develop their own adaptation of it as they begin to transition from the very basic chair into their own translation of it. They take painting in that second semester of the first year. Painting and Structure 2 are the final courses that they take in their first year and complete the fine art minor, along with 2 art history classes that they will take the following year.
So their first year really gives them a pretty good overview of art and design, and where does their second year take them?
Their second year begins by trying to apply what they have learned, the basic skills that they have developed in those foundation courses, and begin to apply those to interior spaces. You'll see in these projects, this is from a class called Presentation Techniques, where the students are beginning to take those drawing and painting and basic art skills and apply them to the types of drawings that they'll be doing in their projects that follow this semester. This is a semester in which the tools are beginning to be built and applied directly to their interiors degree. The rest of year 2 is in this other room, so we'll walk through here and we can talk about what happens in, it's called Design Fundamentals 1. This is in the first semester of the second year, and students, as you can see, continue to apply those basic art skills. But at this point, they're looking at shape and form and how these elements collide, how they overlap, how they engage. And this is a basic study so that they can begin to apply this to actual three-dimensional spaces. Along with that, the students begin to learn how to actually technically draw, where they start manually and eventually go into computer-aided graphics. But we take things such as fruit that they're familiar with and begin to teach them the types of drawings that are used in the design industry, such as elevation and section. As you can see, they also begin to look at those same types of drawings with regard to furniture items. Around here, you'll see as they continue to do their work in the first semester of the second year, they begin to deal in form and actual spaces. These are somewhat theoretical, but they're beginning to learn proportion and scale and how the individual might feel and react within a space. They do this through building models, and at the same time, they are documenting what they've designed so that they can learn to take these spaces and actually learn how to create the drawings that are needed to produce them. In that same sequence of courses, they deal with large pavilions, they deal with smaller spaces, they take cubes and carve into solids, and as I mentioned earlier, they continue to learn how to document these spaces as they go. Students do a lot of work by hand. They also do a lot with the computer and digitally. It's important that our students be able to communicate to their client what their ideas are for the spaces. This particular course that you're looking at is digital communications, in which they learn different software programs, and because they are artists, they are encouraged to apply these and begin to understand not only the software itself, but how to compose different presentations. This is not related to space, but yet they begin to take something that they're familiar with, their hometown, and try to project an image of that hometown, which enables them later to communicate those ideas about spaces. You'll see more of that here. They take classical buildings, begin to deconstruct them and build models. And then as you move on over here, you can see how they begin to apply these to their first, I guess we call it their real project with the real client. Students are paired with fine art students, and each interior architecture student is paired with the fine art student and develops a gallery or a museum for their artwork based on the fine art students' design philosophy. So these models are all sited around a lake, and they build the topographical model and the construction model for the space. Some of them have kind of fallen apart. It's one thing about models, they don't last as long. You can see here where they study anthropometrics, how the human body relates to the environment, to the classic red and blue chair by Rietveld. And here they actually create spaces for students on campus, music student ensembles to perform across campus. They do that by using found objects and have to get really creative. So this is kind of the end of the second year. The final project this year had to do with the Christian service mission. We also emphasize community service. And in this particular case, the students met with the client. As you can see, they did programmatic studies. They began to put together a facility study and created a final brochure that they gave to the Christian Service Mission to use as a document to move forward with the changes in their buildings.
It seems like they cover a lot of ground their second year.
They do. In that second year, students only take interior architecture classes. While other students across campus are still combining general ed with their major, our students it's like a block of courses that they really build a good team relationship amongst the students. They spend a lot of time in studio. In fact, they have access to the space 24/7. They have their own workstations, and so this kind of becomes their second home during that second year.
Well, it appears that after their first 2 years, they've learned a lot about architecture, design, and theory, and so what really happens in their third year?
Okay, they take these foundation courses from the first year and the architectural theory that they've learned in the second year and begin to truly design realistic spaces for realistic clients. The first project that they work on is typically a product showroom where they go measure a building, they document the building, and then they meet with different manufacturers' representatives who are trying to sell a product to the interior design industry and their clients. And so they give them a lot of feedback and input on what it needs to, what needs to happen in the space and what it's like to bring a client to their space. So they use that background to design these projects. Some, as you can see, are created still manually with this particular student applied her basic watercolor skills. Others create more of a presentation using their digital communication skills. And you'll also see over here that at the same time they're beginning to learn to document these spaces technically. We use AutoCAD, we use Revit, different software programs that they create construction documents that communicate these ideas to a contractor and are also used in permitting a building for construction. The second project that they do is generally a real-life project where they have another client. This last year we used Live Design Group, which is an architectural firm in town, and they served as our client to enable the students to renovate the space that they're currently in. The students went, looked at the space, the client met with them and talked to them about their goals for the project, and the students were able to then create their solutions and actually went back to the architectural firm and presented the solutions to the firm, which gave them a great opportunity not only to design a space for a real client, but to present their ideas to a real client. So there was a lot of pressure, but they really came through very strong, and they were very impressive presentations. The first year, as you can see, the first semester, of the third year deals primarily with small commercial spaces. That integrates well with the construction documents that you've seen them create. In the second semester of the third year, the students move into more residential studies. This particular one, since small spaces are becoming more and more important and there's kind of a trend in that area, we took the Vulcan site and we removed Vulcan. And the city probably wouldn't like that, but we took the Vulcan site and studied the sun angles, the wind direction, that type thing, the topographical attributes of the space, and the students were given 3 modules. You can see some of these on the floor, but they were given a 16 by 16, a 16 by 20, and a 16 by 30 module. They arranged them in different partie diagrams, and they developed their own spaces based on that criteria. The one here you can see, I don't want to step on these, but they created a client description. Some had special needs. I think this particular child, they were addressing Down syndrome. Another addressed an autistic child and the needs that might occur for a family that had those special needs. And they developed the plans and the elevations based on its location on the site, to take advantage of the views, to take advantage of the sun, and think about thermal control, natural light, and that sort of thing. Another project that the students engage in during that year would be a kitchen and bath renovation. That is something that every interior designer is usually called on to do at some point in their career. And so the students took an existing space and gutted the kitchen and the master bath and developed new layouts and specifications for that. Within that component, the students also learned about universal design, which is the consideration of how people age within a space, how they can create a space that will accommodate not only someone that perhaps is disabled, but just as someone ages in place, how they might be able to continue to use the space without having to totally gut it or move out or that kind of thing. So that kind of wraps up what they do during this third year.
In addition to studio courses, I understand that your students are introduced to a lot of different materials and different aspects of the field. Can you tell us a little bit about what's on exhibit here?
Certainly. In addition to studio courses, we do have specific courses that are focused on topics that relate to all of the projects that they work on. For instance, here we have a textiles and materials class where students study the variety of products that are available for them to use and apply to their projects. This includes the study of not only the material itself, but how it's installed, life cycle costing, whether the components or whether the materials have sustainability qualities that contribute to the interior. We also study furniture design, furniture and millwork. Custom furniture and custom millwork is a big part of what interior architecture is. Here they did historic studies of chairs and used that to then develop their own chair designs. We used our 3D printer to create prototypical models of the chairs that they designed. In the process, they did anthropometric studies where they understood how the dimension of the body had to be adapted and communicate with the chair itself and be supported by that. The students also study lighting, which is a critical component of any interior space. It sets the mood, it sets the tone, it creates emphasis where emphasis is needed. We find this particularly important in retail and in restaurant design, hospitality design. But lighting has not only aesthetic issues that it contributes or attributes, but also contributes the just function of the space. You can see that they got creative with some individual luminaires that they created themselves and attempted to build. In addition, green design is a topic that used to be a big selling point, LEED accreditation and that type thing, but now we just assume that sustainability issues are a part of every design project. That's just one of the responsibilities that a professional designer has to their client and to the future generations, is to be good stewards of our environment. And so students have a particular class that is dedicated towards sustainability, and they learn about how to determine if a product is truly sustainable, and then they use this information to evaluate products that they specify for their projects within the studio classes.
Since this is a 4-year program, tell us how this all culminates to their 4th year and how they proceed with their thesis and what they do in their 4th year.
Okay. The 4th year involves students moving into larger scale projects that are more comprehensive, so that each year as they build, they begin to apply what they've learned to the next project. So it's a vertical learning model Within the fourth year, students address commercial spaces. We usually do a corporate headquarters project. Last year we were involved with a steel case student competition project, and the students were given a space in Atlanta. We went and visited the building, and they met with the steel case representatives there and went to the showroom. And the students, this one in particular, incorporated a lot of her digital graphic skills in creating the design for the space. You can see that they also specify the furnishings that go within the space itself. This is another corporate headquarters project over here that this was for a fashion industry. It was in an old warehouse. Again, it was a student competition project that was a collaboration between Interiors and Sources magazine and Gresham Smith and Partners. And this particular year, our student was the national winner for that student competition. Another project that we've done in the senior year, this was working in conjunction with actually Auburn's Urban Studio. They had done an urban renewal study for Fayette, Alabama, and then they asked us if we would take kind of one of the cornerstone buildings there and help them create design solutions for a boutique hotel. So this project here is one of our solutions for that. Another example of a fourth year project, again, this was a steel case competition project where the student incorporated her watercolor skills along with her computer graphic skills. And you can see that the final presentation is very soft, very creative, very artistic, but still very technical in the way that it communicates the ideas for the design. And after the students finish their first semester of the fourth year, they have also been engaging in collaborative study for their thesis project. And the thesis project at Samford's Interior Architecture program is something that we're very proud of. In the past, the students have done individual projects like you see here. This particular student designed a Birmingham Academy of the Arts. She took a building downtown and totally restructured it and recreated what she thought would be a wonderful attribute to the city. What we've begun to do now is called Design Education for World Impact. And this is a program where we collaborate or we assist a ministry in a foreign country. And our students spend the fall semester doing research with regard to the ministry and the project that will be forthcoming. They get to know the client either via Skype or some go-to meeting, or even they might come visit the campus. But during our Jan term, or during that midterm between first and second semester, the students actually go visit the site. Last year they went to Ecuador and visited the site where they would be designing or redesigning an assembly space for a Christian camp there, an area where they plant churches and train the ministers, and the churches also have this camp to bring their body for retreats and that type thing. This year, the students have worked with a group in Calcutta, India. So they research the project, they learn about the ministry, they learn about the potential clients, and this was a healthcare facility. In January, the students traveled to Calcutta, and they were able to meet with the client. They were able to visit the site where the building would be built, and they were able to become familiar with different construction techniques and materials that are indigenous to the area. They came back to campus, and in the spring semester, they each set out to design their own solution for that project. This is one example of student work. Another one's here on the table. We actually had 6 students that traveled to the site, and they all developed their own solution for the project. Once they did this, they began to then try to understand how they would put these buildings together. They created these presentations, and the rest of them are out here in the hall, so we can keep walking. But they created these presentations, and via Skype, they presented their solutions to the client. They also did a separate presentation to local design professionals who could comment on their design skills, their presentation skills, and so they were actually juried based on 2 different criteria: the client needs, and then as designers and design solutions. What they did was develop these projects, and they are currently in the process of collaborating to come up with one solution that they agree on, that the client agrees on. And what they will do is complete the solution. They will develop construction documents to get these buildings designed and documented so that they can be built. And then a number of the students actually, after graduation, will travel back to Calcutta and assist in building the project. So it's really a unique experience that we provide for the students, where they have a client, it's international, they understand about different cultures, they get to travel, and they see the rewards of helping other people, which is vital to what we believe Samford's ministry is and part of Samford's mission. And we're thrilled that the students can leave our program having taken part in that.